Chapter 51. Heavens Above 1. I first wandered around various parts of Ascension Path. I visited the dwelling of the core formation demon fox, but all that remained were bloodstains and white fur. The fox was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that Sea Dragon King's statement about the heavenly being cultivators capturing all creatures above chi building and core formation level was not an exaggeration. The fox's cave does have denser spiritual energy. I absorbed some of the spiritual energy around the fox's cave. However, since Ascension Path itself had spiritual energy 4 to 5 times denser than Yangguo and Biokra, it didn't really matter where I practiced. First, I returned to my original cave, stored some food, and began practicing the 5 surpassing paths to cultivation. After a month of practicing, I managed to activate the spiritual meridian corresponding to the first level of the 72 earthly Sha, the Earth Leader Star. Practicing with all my heart in the dense spiritual energy of Ascension Path seemed to have expedited the activation. Following the training method of understanding before breakthrough from my past life and enhancing my understanding of true words and hand seals also seemed to help greatly. I'm relieved to have quickly overcome the most worrying hurdle. The Earth Leader Star Meridian was one I had forcibly activated by absorbing random spirit stones in my previous life, practicing breakthrough followed by understanding. Despite later enhancing my understanding of the Earth Leader true word and practicing hand seals, I was a bit worried, but it turned out well. Now that I've activated the spiritual meridian and reached Chi refining first star. Though it's a bit challenging, I should be able to use basic spells. Perhaps it's time to head towards the Ascension Gate. I decided and looked in the direction where Jin Baek Ho, White Bone Ghost Devil, Sir Chong Ho, and Seo Wei-ol had flown. Entering the Ascension Gate seemed only feasible for those at the level of heavenly being or higher. But exploring the outskirts might be possible. Maybe, just maybe, there could be clues around the Ascension Gate. Previously, I couldn't return once I left Ascension Path because the Mad Lord instantly threw me and Kim Young-hoon into spatial rifts. It was different now. Alright, let's go. I set out towards the direction of the Ascension Gate. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I flew through the air, stepping on the threads of heaven and earth spiritual energy, taking in the landscapes of Ascension Path. Though not yet at the chi building level, I saw all kinds of bizarre creatures. I also spotted unfamiliar herbs, strange plants and very peculiar spiritual herbs. Most of the special spiritual plants seemed to have been taken by the heavenly being cultivators, lacking the precious ones. After days and nights of leaping through the air, rumble, rumble, around the 10th night, I saw a bizarrely shaped thundercloud in the distance. Swirling without any air currents, it condensed and stormed in the sky. Right below the center of the thundercloud, on the ground, a white light radiated. That's the Ascension Gate. Perhaps, the very cause that brought my companions and I to this world. I gazed quietly at the Ascension Gate. I wanted to get a closer look. Rumble, rumble, lightning constantly struck from the thundercloud. Incredible lightning. Below the thundercloud, lightning poured down like rain at an incredible speed. Below the clouds, dark spatial rifts were opening, twisting as if to capture anything that came near. The space around the Ascension Gate was distorted, with black spatial rifts opening their mouths, writhing as if to devour anyone who approaches. I need at least core formation strength, maybe even higher to approach that. I clicked my tongue, unable to muster the courage to get closer, and could only observe. As I observed the Ascension Gate and thundercloud. Below the thundercloud, above the Ascension Gate, something was floating in the air. What's that? It was too far to see clearly. Even focusing my internal energy to enhance my vision only made it vaguely visible, and I couldn't make out what it was. The faint object continuously absorbed the lightning from the thundercloud, floating gently, looking very suspicious. Damn, I'm really curious about that. After pondering, I looked for a safe spot near the Ascension Gate and resumed my cultivation. Once I accumulate more spiritual power, I should be able to use the Tenli Eye spell get a clearer view. 2 months passed. The size of the Ascension Gate halved over time. In the meantime, I managed to activate about 12 more spiritual meridians. The ample spiritual energy of Ascension Path certainly helps, but the speed is much faster since these are the meridians I had already opened through understanding before breakthrough. Understanding before breakthrough is a method of accepting spiritual energy not through inherent qualities, but through acquired effort and understanding. The higher the understanding of true words, the faster the training progresses. Having been personally taught by my master, my comprehension of basic true words is unrivaled. I operated the spiritual power flowing through the meridians, utilizing the Tenli Eye technique to examine the object above the Ascension Gate. Objects within 10 li appeared as if they were right before my eyes. It's a steel. The steel absorbed the constant thunderbolts from the thundercloud, using that power to float in the air. There was something written on it. Leave it behind for future generations, relinquish your desires and ascend. Those who do not adhere will face calamity. On closer inspection, the top part of the steel was gone. I couldn't read the top part, but the remaining inscription seemed like a warning left by a cultivator for future generations intending to pass through the Ascension Gate. What does it mean to leave behind? Is it referring to spirit stones, spiritual treasures, or elixirs? Another thing, the inscription on the steel was written in an ancient language used for education in Yangguo, Biokra, and Shaanxi. Having studied it for cultural reasons, I could barely read it, but I knew the steel's language was at least several thousand years old. Just a warning left by a previous cultivator for future generations. I felt somewhat deflated. I had expected some grand secret, but it was just an ordinary warning. Even that seemed to imply more of a mental preparation before entering the Ascension Gate than a special warning. I guess I don't need to worry about that. Disappointed, I decided to return to my original location. Training here wasn't bad, but the distant thunderclouds and spatial rifts made it a challenging environment for concentration. After another 10 nights, I returned to the cave where my companions and I had first settled. For now, I'll try to regain the cultivation I achieved in my past life as quickly as possible. Having learned the understanding before breakthrough training method, I should be able to quickly recover my cultivation with the high spiritual energy density of Ascension Path. I sat down and began my decultivate. About 10 years passed. I opened the 72 earthly Sha meridians. I condensed the 36 heavenly gang spiritual natures. I adapted the 12 earthly branches spiritual types to my meridians. I imbued the 10 heavenly stems diagram spiritual changes. I unified the 108 spiritual meridians and 60 spiritual natures with the 9 palaces 1 origin principle. I completed all the meridians according to the 8 trigrams. Rumble. I felt the full activation and integration of the major spiritual meridians throughout my body. Using the earth-dwelling method and the 5 surpassing paths to cultivation, I formed a hand seal. Earth court. Rumble. Mud walls rose around me, and a mud house was constructed. I stepped out of the mud house, tested various supernatural powers and spells, and then took a deep breath. 10th year of my return. In just over 10 years, I reached the Qi refining 7th star, a cultivation that took me over 50 years in my past life. And what remained was the 7 stars ritual. I had to choose 7 stars among the 28 celestial stars and ask for the descent of heaven and earth spiritual energy. I knew all the methods and procedures for performing the ritual. I also knew how to build an altar. I understood how to calculate the auspicious timing and observe the stars. All that was left was for the heavens to grant permission. In this life, definitely, I will surpass this stage. After reaching Qi refining 7th star, I observed the constellations, calculated the timing, and chose a date for the ritual. This day, at this time, will be suitable for the ritual. I gazed at the sky. Based on my observation and sensing of spiritual energy, the weather was predicted to be clear for the next 10 nights. The ritual was 2 days away. Would the heavens grant me permission? I used the earth-dwelling method and the 5 surpassing paths to cultivation to gather earth and stone, building an altar and decorating it with spiritual herbs and fruits from the vicinity. And then, the date of the ritual arrived. The sun sets, and the stars gather. A beautiful starry sky, but knowing the cruelty hidden in this beautiful sky, I did not lose my vigilance as I commenced the ritual. The ritual begins. I, Xiao Unyun, a mortal who seeks the path of immortal cultivation. Wearing simple clothes and ascending the star ritual altar, I examine the terrain and wish to honor the 7 stars of the Eastern Jia East Azure constellation. I offer to the 28 celestial stars and 6 dings and 6 jaws of heaven and earth, expanding each direction. For the Eastern Jia, the spirit of the Azure Dragon corresponds to the stars of horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket forming the image of Azure respect and planting it. For the Southern Bingding, the spirit of the red vermilion corresponds to the stars of well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wing, and chariot forming the image of yang respect and planting it. For the Western Jiangshan, the spirit of the white tiger corresponds to the stars of legs, bond, stomach, hairy head, net, beak, triple star forming the image of white respect and planting it. For the northern Rengui, the spirit of the black turtle corresponds to the stars of ladle, ox, girl, emptiness, rooftop, chamber, wall forming the image of yin respect and planting it. For the central Wuji, the spirit of the Yellow Emperor arranges the yellow spirit flag according to the order of the 5 directions and planting it. After Seo Unyun has trimmed his nails and disheveled his hair, he humbly offers this prayer. Holding a piece of bark inscribed with ritual text in my right hand and a stone incense burner in my left, I recite the ritual text towards the celestial constellations. I select the constellations that suit me from the 4 and address the 7 stars. As a mortal, Seo Unyun, wishing to walk the path of immortal cultivation, I appeal to the 7 stars of the Azure Respect constellation, horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket, to graciously consider this. The 7 stars governing the Eastern Jai's fate, the stars of horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket. I pray to these 7 stars, performing the ritual dance. I draw a stone sword representing the constellation and perform a sword dance symbolizing the 7 celestial stars, elevating the spiritual energy of the altar. Grant this humble star the opportunity. I humbly beseech thee, heavens above, bestow upon me the spiritual essence of heaven and earth. Heavens above, grant me strength. As I continued my ritual dance, I looked up at the sky and stretched out my arms. Heavens above, the sky was covered in dark clouds. Despite my observation of spiritual energy predicting clear weather. Heavens above, the starlight's energy was cut off. Continuous communication with the stars was essential. But as the star's spiritual energy was cut off, naturally, the energy of the altar also faded. The ritual ended just like that. Ha, ha ha ha, yes, I expected this. I never thought the heavens would easily grant me power. It was the same in my past life. And perhaps it will be the same in the future. But I will not give up. I can't give up. For my life, to reach even higher, and to not make my master's efforts meaningless. Heavens above, no matter how proudly you stand in my way, I will definitely, somehow, reach that place. Boom, I rolled my feet, collapsing the altar, and quietly glared at the sky. The dark clouds on that day, the first ritual after my return, was unusually dark. The timing for the ritual came around roughly once every fortnight. I consistently refined the ritual implements, continuously offering rituals to the heavens every half-month. As a mortal, Seo Unyun, wishing to walk the path of immortal cultivation, I appeal to the 7 stars of the Azure Respect constellation, horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket, to graciously consider this. Seo Unyun, wishing to walk the path of immortal cultivation, I appeal to the 7 stars of the Yin Respect constellation, ladle, ox, girl, emptiness, rooftop, chambert, wall, to graciously to walk the path of immortal cultivation. I appeal to the 7 stars of the White Respect constellation, legs, bond, stomach, hairy head, net, beak, triple star, to walk the path. I appeal to the 7 stars of the Yang Respect constellation, well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wing, and chariot. Rotating through the 28 celestial stars and their 4 constellations, I earnestly entreated different constellations with every favorable opportunity. O constellation of Eastern Jai, please accept me. O constellation of Southern Bingding, please permit me. O constellation of Western Jiangshin, please look upon me. O constellation of Northern Rengui, please raise me. O stars, this human pleads to you. Please, please. I performed the rituals with every return of the moon's cycle, again and again. 24 times in a year. Occasionally, I held additional rituals during special auspicious times, totaling 36 attempts in a year. And each time, I failed. Failed repeatedly. The heavens kept pushing me away. 1 year passed, then 2, then 3. And as time went by, 10 years elapsed. 10 years. During that time, there were about 500 attempts. Combined with the 24 officially sanctioned auspicious times in a year, and a few special occasions, I conducted 572 rituals. And all of them failed. Each time, the heavens stood in my way. Heavens. As I watched yet another ritual collapse, I softly called out to the sky. Please, give me strength. The sky was covered in dark clouds. Without any response. This was probably my 573rd failure. For over 10 years, in a place devoid of people, I cried out to the heavens, again and again. My beard has grown bushy, and my clothes has completely worn out. Recently, I have been weaving grass into garments, not because I needed clothes in the absence of people, but to maintain a minimum of decorum for the rituals. They say that if the heart is sincere, the heavens will respond. But it seems the heavens of this world do not know such sayings. Did they truly have no response, even after a human devoted 10 years? I don't know. Lately, it all seemed futile. Buzz, whoosh, whoosh. I watched a stone sword I had carved for the rituals, controlled by dual energy sword control, perform a dance in the air. So lonely. Loneliness. I hadn't known about it before. I had always spent time among people. Even when my hands bled from training, I at least had my master and Kim Young-hoon for company. But now, I have truly become alone. Watching the lonely sword dance performed by the flying sword, I suddenly grabbed another stone sword and infused it with sword energy. How about playing around for a while? Thinking of the flying sword as Kim Young-hoon, I rushed at it. The flying sword used the severing vein saber method, and I, the severing mountain swordsmanship, danced together all day long. For about a week, I completely lost myself dancing with the sword. Moving my body to exhaustion seemed to relieve some frustration in my mind. My swordsmanship became more natural, feeling more advanced than before. The flying sword, imbued with mountain wind, shot at me quickly. I grabbed another sword and deflected it with secluded valley, then counterattacked the imaginary opponent with bouldered cliff and strange stone. Now my skill in controlling the sword have improved so much that it felt as if the sword floating in the air was not controlled. It seemed as if the invisible Kim Young-hoon was holding the sword and swinging it at me. Kim Hung. How is my skill? Buzz, whoosh. The flying sword charged at me, aiming at my feet with Dragon's Mound. I adopted transcending peaks and then countered from the lower position with echoing valley. But the flying sword, having no one actually holding it, didn't suffer much damage. Is it so? Am I still inadequate? But haven't I improved a lot? Kim Young-hoon, holding the flying sword, sighed, commenting and lecturing on my posture. Thank you for being a conversation partner. After talking with Kim Young-hoon, I examined my swordplay, corrected the points he mentioned, and swung my sword again. It certainly seems a bit better. I see. Using my intent in this way seems more helpful. Kim Young-hoon clicked his tongue and pointed out my internal energy and intent use again. I kept refining my technique as he advised, progressing forward. Thank you, Kim Hung. Kim Young-hoon smiled and nodded at me. Then, he said that chatting was unnecessary during a martial arts match, grabbed his sword again, and lunged at me. Ha, let's have fun. I laughed heartily and clashed with Kim Young-hoon. Several days passed. That day, too, I unconsciously calculated the celestial movements, prepared the ritual altar in advance, and checked the ritual tools. And I received martial arts guidance from Kim Young-hoon. Wait, Kim Hung, what's wrong with my stance? Kim Young-hoon sighed in frustration and demonstrated his martial arts skill in front of me. After watching his demonstration for a while, I still couldn't figure it out. I really don't understand, let's just spar. Kim Young-hoon grinned, took up his sword, and charged at me. I too danced with the sword and clashed with him. But did Kim Hung originally use a sword? His main weapon was a saber, wasn't it? Suddenly, that thought occurred to me. To make it more fun to play with Kim Young-hoon, I refined a rock into a stone saber using a spell. Kim Young-hoon examined the saber, seemed pleased with it, and then attacked me with Mountain Bird. Yes, indeed, it's more enjoyable to spar with Kim Hung using a saber. We danced with our sword and saber, again and again. I calculated the auspicious times for rituals and conducted them when the time was right. Invariably, I failed again. I destroyed the failed ritual altars with Kim Young-hoon and repeated the martial arts sparring hundreds of times. Days and nights passed like that. One day, while sparring with Kim Young-hoon, we moved far from the original cave. Not towards the Ascension Gate, but in the opposite direction. That is, the direction from which Jin Baek-ho, White Bone Ghost Devil, and Sir Chong-ho had come from. Come to think of it, Kim Hung. If we keep going in that direction, will we reach places like Biokra and Yangguo that we know of? Since we don't know how it's connected to the geography we're familiar with in Ascension Path. Kim Young-hoon, swinging his saber at me, suggested that we keep going in that direction to find out. Ha, great, let's keep going and have a blast. Once again, his saber clashed with my sword. About 2 months later, Kim Young-hoon and I finally reached the end of Ascension Path. This is. I was speechless at the sight. Kim Young-hoon also seemed stunned, holding his saber loosely and just staring at the end of Ascension Path. Now I understand why we never knew the direct passage to Ascension Path from Cheongmin Clan's library in my previous life. I chuckled and walked towards the edge of Ascension Path. Ascension Path was floating in the sky. A giant landmass imbued with spiritual energy, floating above the sky. Below us, the ground was a dim expanse. At the same time, I realized where Ascension Path was located. The heaven-treading desert. What was visible below was undoubtedly an endless desert. As far as I knew, the only desert like that was the heaven-treading desert. Why the desert was named heaven-treading? The name heaven-treading desert was a topic of debate among scholars from Yangguo and Biokra. Some said it was named heaven-treading because of a legend that it was connected to the sky. Others said it was because many who crossed the endless sands of the desert died and ascended to heaven. Some even thought heaven-treading was a transliteration of a word from distant eastern desert countries. But now I clearly understand the reason. Ascension Path and the Ascension Gate. A place with an entrance to ascend to the heavens. It seemed that numerous cultivators had named it heaven-treading, treading on heaven. Quote. Amazing, Kim Hung. I looked at Kim Young-hoon, wanting to express my feelings, but was startled to see him. Kim Young-hoon's figure had become blurry. No, it cannot be. Quote. Ha, ha ha. I took my sword and charged at the blurred figure of Kim Young-hoon. As I collided with the indistinct shadow, we exchanged a few blows. I found a gap in the shadows. Defense and managed to split it in half with my sword, killing it. And so, the shadow was cut in half and died. Quote. Quote. Thud, the saber that the shadow had been holding. No, the saber that I had been controlling all by myself fell from the air. Quote. That's right, Kim Young-hoon. I sent him off alone 23 years ago. It was then that I remembered. For about 2.5 years now, I have been half out of my mind. Seeing the breathtaking and majestic sight that Ascension Path was floating in the sky. I momentarily regained clarity and came to my senses. Hee hee, ha 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 ha, I collapsed on the spot, giggling and then bursting into laughter. According to the calculations I made in my semi-insane state, tonight would be the day when the time for the ritual would come again. However, I had neither set up an altar nor prepared or brought any ritual implements. Just sitting there, I laughed for a while, and then cried. The stars began to rise. Heavens above, heavens above, heavens above. Without performing the ritual, I just called out to the stars. How much longer must I stay in this place? Please, send me to the next star. Please, prevent me from going more insane. Heavens above. Chapter 52. Heavens above 2. The night passed, and dawn broke. Then, I witnessed something extraordinary. Whoosh! The stone saber I had made for the imaginary Kim Young-hoon, which I had split in half, began to float in the air. A faint figure started to reappear. The figure I had split in two. Each half of the figure, now holding the upper and lower parts of the saber, began to grow new bodies on their opposite sides. Wriggle, wriggle, new bodies fully formed, and the reality of the two Kim Young-hoons became clear again. This time as well, they were Kim Young-hoon. The two Kim Young-hoons, each holding a saber, aimed at me. Their transparent eyes asked me to stop my futile thoughts and engage in a duel. Hey, hee hee hee, I felt saliva dripping from my mouth. My eyes bloodshot, I chuckled and stood up shakily, holding the stone sword. Ha ha ha, I rushed towards the two Kim Young-hoons. Crazy or not, what did it matter? Yes, let's just play and think later. It was another 6 months before I managed to defeat the two Kim Young-hoons. I roamed around, engaging in battles with them. Finally, I elevated my severing mountain swordsmanship to the extreme and succeeded in cutting down both Kim Young-hoons simultaneously. There lay the bisected corpses of the two Kim Young-hoons, still smiling eerily. Quote. Aren't you resentful that I've cut you down? Despite being bisected, the two Kim Young-hoons shook their heads. Seemingly, they were happy to see my martial arts improve. From the bisected bodies of the two Kim Young-hoons, new bodies began to sprout again. Wriggle, wriggle. Now, the two Kim Young-hoons have become 4. Each of them was armed and surrounded me. The fight was about to get even tougher. Alright, let's do this. Months passed again. Whenever the time was right, I held rituals towards the heavens, and each time they failed, I, along with the now 6 Kim Young-hoons, would demolish the altar. Why? I screamed towards the heavens, smashing the altar with the Kim Young-hoons. Why won't you grant me permission? Heavens, why still, if this much sincerity isn't enough, then what more do you want from me? Boom, The sixth Kim Young-hoon swung his saber, shattering the last piece of the altar. I thanked him and sat down, exhausted. Kim Hung. I spoke to the Kim Young-hoons. I know, I've lost my mind right now. But in a way, I'm both insane and rational. The repeated failures and the loneliness of not being able to converse had led to these illusions. I pondered over my feelings and formed a hypothesis about the Kim Young-hoons in front of me. You all are the Kim Young-hoons I remember from my past lives, aren't you? At my words, all 6 Kim Young-hoons nodded. Excluding the Kim Young-hoon from my first life without regression in this current cycle, they were the 6 Kim Young-hoons from the 6 cycles of regressions. The ones I remembered and longed for. I'm sorry for dragging the departed into my delusions. They smiled wryly, saying it's just my imagination, what does it matter? I chuckled and grasped my sword. I'm always grateful for playing with me. Blink. I closed and opened my eyes. Their figures vanished, leaving 6 floating stone sabers. Blinking again, they transformed back into 6 Kim Young-hoons. 7 years passed. Heavens, grant me strength. Heavens, please accept me. Whoosh. Once again, I clenched my teeth at the sight of the obstructing dark clouds. Still, I am not granted permission by the heavens. It was different from when I transitioned from first rate to the peak. Back then, though there was an indescribable huge wall blocking me, I could feel the existence beyond that wall and devoted my life to breaking through. But now, it's not a huge wall. It's like being thrown alone into an endless space. There's no wall, nothing at all. I can't even see the next realm. When will the heavens permit me? There's no promise, just me clinging to the cold and lofty mercy of the heavens, waiting for the next realm. I must try. Crack. My fingers, imbued with gang chi, grip the stone altar made by the earth-dwelling method, leaving imprints. Yes, I must try. No matter how much the heavens ignore me. Even if I am just a struggling bug. Until they accept me, I must keep enduring. Yes, if not today, then tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, then the day after. Until they accept me, I will keep trying, over and over. Heavens above, I am waiting. Boom, I stamped my foot. The altar crumbled. Beside me, 6 Kim Young-hoons, each performing their own ritual dance, assisted me as we furiously pounded the altar together. I will definitely reach you. Swoosh. At some point, I was able to overcome the 6 Kim Young-hoons. The heavens would still not permit me. All I did was swing around pieces of stone. Even that was just a figment of my imagination. Were the Kim Young-hoons before me the real ones? No, they weren't. If they were the real Kim Young-hoons, they would have shot a single gang sphere and blown me away. What I was fighting were just Kim Young-hoons supported by my imagination. But, I have now overcome all the Kim Young-hoons I have longed for. Now, whom do I have to fight? Who do I have to compete with to express this torment? That's when it happened. Wriggle, wriggle, the illusions of the 6 Kim Young-hoons I had overcome. Their corpses began to squirm. And from those wriggling of corpses, something began to grow. It was the leader of the Shadow Guards and its members. The Shadow Guards grew from Kim Young-hoon's corpses, and the 6 Kim Young-hoons squirmed and grew again. Now, along with the 6 Kim Young-hoons, the Shadow Guards have appeared. Haha, not bad. The combined attack of masters is better the more there are. Drooling from my mouth, I shouted. Come at me, all of you, come at me. Fine, I will make the weapons for you. I formed a hand seal, made stone weapons for the Shadow Guards and Kim Young-hoons, infused them with gang chi, and threw them. They took my weapons and all rushed at me. Every time I fought, I felt a tingling pleasure in my head, blowing away the pain and despair of my ritual failures. Ha, it's so fun, so very fun. I am enjoying this. My intent was somehow a dark blue hue. But I didn't care and shouted. Great, 2 years passed, 32 years since regression. 22 years since the start of the 7 Stars ritual. That day, I was drooling from my mouth, taking the combined attack of several members of the Shadow Guards and several peak masters I had met, and the combined attacks of the Kim Young-hoon group. We were fighting, crossing a mountain in the sky. Suddenly, while fending off the extreme attack of the Shadow Guard leader, I noticed something different down below. That is, I felt my eyes widen, gestured to the people playing with me, and went down. It was a stone building. A trace of civilization. I hurriedly ran to the stone building. This place is. Inside the stone building, there was no sign of life. At most, some spiritual herbs or poisonous plants growing in various places and low-level spiritual beasts that came together to bare their teeth at me. But such creatures, seeing the shadow guards and peak masters of the great sects, and the group of Kim Young-hoons following me, were surprised and fled with wide eyes. Strange. These are supposed to be visible only to me because I've lost my mind. Why are those creatures running away? After thinking for a while, I realized that many weapons floating in the air following me would be a terrifying sight. Well, good. Anyway, this building is. The building seemed to be made in a style used thousands of years ago. Inside, there wasn't much to see. It's not made for people to live in. It was too cramped for that. This wasn't so much a building as. It feels like a shrine. I looked at the altar, or something similar, and became certain of my thoughts. At the top of the altar, there was a large square indentation, as if something had been placed there before. An ancestral tablet or some kind of stele. Wait, a stele. I came out of the building and looked at it hastily. I hadn't noticed because I rushed in, but this building didn't just seem neglected due to age. Around it were stones that seemed like remnants of the stone building, and the bottom part of the building was ripped out. And the terrain around the stone building. It was as if a very powerful person had plucked this stone building from its original place and thrown it here. The terrain around the stone building was deeply gouged on one side. As if thrown and leaving a mark on the land. I looked in the direction the gouge pointed. It was towards the Ascension Gate. The indentation on the altar inside the building. Its size is exactly the same as the stele that floated above the Ascension Gate. Perhaps this stone building was originally erected where the Ascension Gate was. And one of the heavenly being cultivators had plucked the building and thrown it here for some reason. Is there a hidden secret? While searching near the stone building, I found something delightful. This is a fragment of a stone with oracle bone script written on it. It was too ancient for me to identify correctly. But from what I know, it seemed to mean thunder. I searched around the fragment with the character for thunder, but found nothing more. I'm curious now, is there some hidden secret in this place? What does this oracle bone script of thunder mean? Is it related to the thunderclouds near the Ascension Gate? It's getting interesting. As I came up with various hypotheses and my mind cleared, the many figures around me became transparent. Only numerous stone weapons floated in the air. Shall I look for more of these similar buildings? With that intention, I wandered around the island, looking carefully. The size of Ascension Path was immense, as big as combining several cities. It seemed to be about the size of South Korea. At the center of the island was the Ascension Gate, and this place was shaped like a circular land floating in the air around the gate. But despite my thorough search, I couldn't find any more buildings like the stone building. It's hard to find out more without further clues. I sighed and went near the Ascension Gate for the first time in a while. The gate was closed due to the time past, but the spatial rifts and thunderclouds around it remained. But I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Traces of the stone building near the Ascension Gate. Stones that looked of the same material as the stone building were scattered nearby. It seemed like the base of the stone building. I examined the stones, then went back to where the stone building was located. The direction the stone building flew from the Ascension Gate was north. I suddenly realized that the size of the stone building and the part near the Ascension Gate, which seemed to be its base, didn't match. The base part is almost 10 times bigger. This meant the original stone building was much larger. But why was only this stone building left here? I thought about whether the remnants of the stones had weathered and crumbled, but there weren't many such remnants nearby. Then, there was a larger stone building when the cultivator blew up the building. When they ripped and threw the building, only this part fell here, and the rest, further north, fell outside the area. I ran to the northern edge, looking down at the desert below. Tisk, all sand. Maybe it was buried under the sand. The stone, having touched it a few times, was very sturdy and not easily damaged. I might have to dig under the sand nearby later. Or since I've mastered earth spells, I could dig underground. Anyway, I'll investigate later. I decided such and looked up at the sky. Despite my sudden doubts and curiosity, I haven't paid much attention. But now, I need to perform the ritual again. How long must this continue? Suddenly, the urge to give everything up overwhelmed me. How long must I keep doing this? Perhaps I was doing something foolish. After all, maybe the heavens have no intention of permitting me, no matter what I did or do. Am I just working in vain? Am I foolishly lingering in this place for nothing? Master, I clenched my teeth. Boom. I stomped my foot, and the earth rose up, forming an altar. As you said, Master, sincerity can reach the heavens. I will give it my all. Not yet. I can't give up yet. Even if I do give up, it will be after I've dedicated this entire life to trying. Because there have been too many who have pushed me forward in my many lives. Many figures surrounded me. Some held weapons, others didn't. There were Kim Young-hoons, subordinates from my time as the Wulin Alliance chief advisor, from the time of the Palace of Heavenly Demons, the Shadow Guards. And my disciples, and my master. Only then did I realize. I haven't gone mad. I wasn't crazy. I was just longing for them so much that I called them to me. The many people in my memory were merely projected before my eyes according to my will. I will not give up. I said, looking at everyone. Looking at the Kim Young-hoons. Looking at my disciples. Looking at my master. For the sake of not forgetting your help, I gathered the ritual utensils, adorned the altar, and prepared for this night's ritual. Heavens above, grant me strength, allow me, I cried out, looking at the sky filled with dark clouds. But the heavens remained silent. Without any response, just silently looking down at me. It was a failure again. But I did not give up. Heavens above, grant me strength, heavens above, allow me, I earnestly prayed, performing and praying through the ritual over and over. The heavens did not look at me, but now I also stopped looking at the heavens. Instead, each time I performed the ritual, I looked at the numerous figures around me. Those who had pushed me forward. The many connections who had supported and sustained me. Even if I can't meet them anymore, they are with me in my heart. Heavens above, I will not give up. Because I am not alone. From a certain point, I stopped smashing the altar in anger after the ritual ended. Instead, I focused on gathering stones to build the altar higher and stronger. My altar grew taller. Eventually, it would reach the sky. As time passed, the figures surrounding me became more and more distinct. As the tower grew taller and stronger, the 6 Kim Young-hoons who fought with me, the Shadow Guards, several peak masters, and my disciples, over 500 disciples, the Shadow Guards, Kim Young-hoons, elders and protectors of various great sects. The loyalists I fought with in the Jin clan. They all came out with weapons and sparred with me. At first, it was overwhelming, but after a few years, I was equally fighting against them all. As my skills improved, the figures participating in my sparring increased. Most were martial artists wielding weapons. But also the petty bandits, water bandits, and unorthodox sect martial artists I had captured. Even the first-rate masters I had sparred with, the number almost reached 2,000 as the range expanded. 35 years into regression. 25 years since starting the 7 Stars ritual. How many thousands of times have I failed the ritual? I can't even remember, but I sense that I will not be broken. I am not alone. How can I be alone with so many accompanying me? Heavens above, look, humans cannot reach the heavens alone. But no human is ever completely alone. Within the many connections and relationships. Inside, us, humans are born and live. Heavens above, you may not look at me. But I am not composed of just myself. Therefore, the heavens cannot ignore us. I now ascend the giant altar, almost as tall as a 4-story building. Thousands of weapons float in the air below the altar. When I blink, the weapons are all held by numerous figures. Besides those figures holding weapons, thousands more without weapons look at me. Some might call me a madman who creates imaginary figures in his madness. From that perspective, I am indeed a madman. But from the perspective of longing for people, am I really mad? Every human is born, grows, and dies within humanity. People inevitably seek others. Is it madness for people to crave others? For people to crave life? For people to yearn for higher places for that? Heavens above, I cannot give up now. I murmured, looking at the countless figures. I know, they are all illusions created by my loneliness, longing, and yearning. But if I can only break free from the cycle of regression and fate, I can find them all again, retrieving my life as it was. And for that, I must ascend higher. As I ascend the altar, I shout towards the heavens. Heavens above, look, I will not give up. I cannot give up. So, grant me strength. So, allow me. The ritual began. Translator notes. Arun Yun needs a break. Also, please don't post spoilers unless asked for, even if it is censored. Thank you. Chapter 53. Heavens above 3. Am I truly mad? The numerous hopeful gazes looking up at me from below felt so vivid. The dark clouds in the sky still haven't cleared, but I wasn't in pain or disappointed that the ritual failed. My master climbed up to the altar and patted my shoulder. "Let's try again next time," he said. "The one who believed in me again and again." I nodded and smiled back at him. Even if they are the delusions of a madman, the numerous eyes gazing up at me from below the altar seem to me like the stars in the sky. I haven't met the stars in the sky, but I have successfully looked back at the stars on the ground with my own strength. I will try once more. My master beside me calculated the celestial changes and timings again. And I recalculated the timings and performed the ritual again. The heavens blocked me many times, but I also challenged it many times. At one moment, the Kim Young-hoons took their sabers and flew towards the heavens, as if to open the sky for me. But still, the sky with clouds are high. After flying a certain distance, the energy in the sword control was exhausted, and they fell back to the ground. I couldn't directly ascend to the sky during the ritual. If the ritualier leaves the altar, the ritual would immediately stop. Sometimes, in a fit of passion, I asked the numerous figures for help, sending thousands of sword controls towards the sky. But, as before reaching the sky, the energy was exhausted, and the weapons fell. After several more attempts, I tried concentrating the gang chi of thousands into a single weapon and sent it flying. It could reach the sky, but by the time it reached the clouds, its energy was so depleted it had no more power than ordinary sword gang. With that level of power, it did no more than slightly shake the massive dark clouds. The shaken clouds attracted even more clouds, thickening and leading to another failure. Failure, failure, failure. But I smiled. The continuous repetition of failure. But based on those failures, I was constantly moving one step higher. My altar grew taller day by day, and more figures became tangible. Heavens above, I will not give up. Heavens above, grant me strength. Permit me. Now, from the altar, 9 floors high, I glared at the sky through the dark clouds. The 36th year, I gradually got better at sending sword control further. Thanks to that, when I sent the sword gang filled with energy towards the sky, the tremor became slightly larger than before. Yet, still not enough to clear those stubborn clouds. I smiled. Step by step, like this, I will gradually get closer to the heavens. The 37th year, I realized something had changed in my dragon vein chi method. I have successfully materialized 5,000 figures and was infusing them with gang chi. I remembered that it's nonsensical to handle such tremendous internal energy with typical martial arts internal energy methods. What's going on? Why? I focused on my dragon vein chi method for a while and noticed a faint pressure and suction forming at the center of my dantian. The pressure and suction further compressed my internal energy, increasing its total amount. I realized this phenomenon was vaguely similar to what is described in the record of surpassing cultivation in martial arts. That's right, I was now entering the peak of 5 energies converging to the origin. 2 lifetimes dedicated, and only now am I reaching this point. Kim Young-hoon would have already reached the ultimate pinnacle with the record of surpassing path and martial arts by now. Maybe he even found a clue beyond the ultimate pinnacle. But I didn't mind. Why? For some reason, Kim Young-hoon no longer seemed so unreachable. The sky didn't seem so high either. Maybe. I suddenly looked at the altar I had built. It was now 15 floors tall. About 45 meters. An immense height. I slowly climbed the altar and unfolded today's ritual. Whoosh. Dark clouds rolled in again. But this time, I shot my highly compressed gang chi towards the sky. It seemed to shake the sky a bit more. Of course, the sky still didn't show any gaps. I grinned, showing my teeth. Heavens above, do you see? This insignificant bug is starting to shake the heavens. Will you truly not allow me? Heavens above, look carefully, for one day you will have to allow me. I smiled at my master, who was happy to see the tremor in the sky. Time passed again. I reflected on my approach to sword control. With a clearer mind, I observed the figures gathered around me. How can I send gang chi even further? There was a time when I was pleased thinking the figures had materialized. But upon sober reflection, it wasn't that the figures materialized, rather, my skill with sword control had improved through incessant practice, increasing the number I could handle. Yet, despite the increase in numbers and technique, there was a limit to how far I could send sword control. Recently, with the pressure forming at the center of my dantian, my internal energy has increased, pushing the limits slightly further. But that was about it. The fundamental issue was that beyond a certain distance, controlling energy became difficult, and the consumption of internal energy increased. I ask the figures around me. How can I send you further away from me? I question Kim Young-hoon. Kim Hung, you must know. How can I send sword control even further? What is the principle behind sending your Gangchi so far? Kim Young-hoon just smiled without answering. I know it too. This Kim Young-hoon is just my imagination, incapable of answering what I don't know. Therefore, I ponder alone, endlessly. How should I do it? How can I send my power all the way to the heavens? I calculate the times while pondering how to send sword control further. Time passed, and my technique improved, but the fundamental problem remained unsolved. However, the figures gradually became more tangible and clear. Suddenly, I had this thought. Why did the figures in my mind materialize? It's because I long for them. Then, are these now materialized figures fake? They are my delusions. If everything is my delusion, are these figures in vain? They're not in vain. Empowered by delusions and madness, I've reached the peak of 5 energies converging to the origin. Why did the delusions affect reality? It's not that the delusions affected reality. I spoke to myself in a question and answer format. These figures are all connections I've had. My dear ones. Therefore, it's my connections that have had an impact. If my connections have moved to another timeline, aren't they as good as non-existent? It's different, even if the connections have disappeared. I remember what everyone left behind. Everyone is connected here. Why are they connected inside you? That's because I lift my head. The one I was conversing with met my eyes. They make up who I am. I had thought of this before. Humans are not formed alone. Humans emerge, grow, and eventually die within the framework of us. Therefore, I am not just made up of myself. All the phantoms I had witnessed up to now were, in fact, myself. Russell. Numerous figures were absorbed into the being before me, who became distinctly visible. It was me. Looking at myself, I smiled. If everything I thought was separate was actually a part of me, wouldn't my martial arts be the same? Right, I have been lost in madness and delusion, reminiscing about many people from my past. Yet, they were all just aspects that constituted me. If the parts that make up me had been maneuvering sword control, couldn't I, as my complete self, also maneuver sword control? Have you gained enlightenment? Yes. It's not a split personality, is it? Haha, it seems not. Then, let's proceed. I look at the me before me, smiling, and extend my hand. Gangchi burst forth from my hand. The me extends both hands. The Gangchi emitted from my hand began to transform within his hands. Simultaneously, I could see the face of the me before me. Numerous faces passed across the face of the me. Among them were those I killed, those I hated, those I longed for, and those I cherished dearly. There were enemies, subordinates, comrades, disciples, and also my master. I recall a night when the numerous gazes upon me felt like starlight. All those countless stars are within me. The stars within me converge in my hand. A whirlpool of Gangchi converge into a single point, creating a star more beautiful than anything else in me's hand. The me hands that star to myself who was watching. I smile and accept the star. Then, the me is absorbed into the star. Finally, I understood what Kim Young-hoon meant when he said there was life within the sphere. Beyond inputting actions like sword control. Finally, infusing oneself into it. That is, ultimate pinnacle, reaching the top of the pinnacle to create the ultimate pinnacle realm. Both my past and present lives. Only after dedicating 2 entire lifetimes, do I step into this realm. The 40th year of my regression. After about a century, finally, I stand up from my place. Time is approaching again. The sun sets, and the stars rise. I look at the altar I have built. The altar is 60 floors tall. It's an altar built over several decades. Wasn't it time to reach the heavens? Holding a star in my hand, I slowly climb the altar. It is fully night and it is time to begin the ritual. I, Seo Eun-yun, a mortal who seeks the path of immortal cultivation. Wearing simple clothes and ascending the 7 stars ritual altar, I examine the terrain and wish to honor the 7 stars of the Eastern Jia constellation. I offer to the 28 celestial stars and 6 dings and 6 jaws of heaven and earth, expanding each direction. For the Eastern Jia, the spirit of the azure dragon corresponds to the stars of horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket forming the image of azure respect and planting it. For the southern Bing Ding, the spirit of the red vermilion corresponds to the stars of well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wing, and chariot forming the image of yang respect and planting it. For the Western Jiangshan, the spirit of the white tiger corresponds to the stars of legs, bond, stomach, hairy head, net, beak, triple star forming the image of white respect and planting it. For the Northern Rengui, the spirit of the black turtle corresponds to the stars of ladle, ox, girl, emptiness, rooftop, chamber, wall forming the image of yin respect and planting it. For the Central Wuji, the god of the yellow emperor arranges the yellow spirit flag according to the order of the 5 directions and planting it. After Xiao Unyun has trimmed his nails and disheveled his hair, he humbly offers this prayer. I recite the ritual text towards the celestial constellations. As a mortal, Xiao Unyun, wishing to walk the path of immortal cultivation, I appeal to the 7 stars of the Azure Respect constellation, horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, and winnowing basket, to graciously consider this. I gather the spiritual energy of the altar and raise the star. Grant this small star an opportunity. Thus, I pray, heavens above, grant me the spiritual essence of heaven and earth. Heavens above, bestow upon me your strength. Thunder rumbles ominously. As expected, the heavens are covered with dark clouds. I stretch my arms towards the sky. The star that I infused with my essence, a creation of human endeavor, began to ascend towards the heavens. The energy of the star is not excessively consumed, for within it, I had already embedded another aspect of myself. Me, perfectly controlling the energy, brings the consumption rate to near zero. The star slowly ascends to the heavens and finally touches the clouds. Heavens above, heavens above, heavens above, heavens above, I call out, time and time again. Heavens above, towards that vast darkness, release your power to me. With that shout, light burst forth. The star explodes, piercing through the heavens. The clouds tear apart in a circle, and starlight from above begin to descend. Sincerity moves the heavens. The heavens are not moved. They simply exist. Then, like a worm tirelessly squirming, I must reach them. The gang sphere I created exploded, and a stream of light surged forth. Within it, the aspect of myself that I had infused. All the connections from my past lives look down at me from the heavens. Kim Young-hoons from my past lives, my disciples, my master. They all smile at me from the heavens. Stretching both my arms towards the heavens, I embrace the spiritual essence of heaven and earth falling upon me. This moment, practiced and envisioned countless times, I would not let slip away. I activate my meridians to absorb the spiritual essence of heaven and earth, looking up towards the heavens. Heavens above, I have won. Thus, I completed the 7 stars ritual and successfully advanced from Qi refining 7th star to the 8th star. Translator notes. Let's all give a round of applause to our regressor Xiao. Chapter 54. Heavenly Thunder 1. Crackling, thundering. From the dark clouds in the sky, a blue light flashed, followed by the sound of thunder. Somehow, if the sky also had consciousness, I thought its color would be fiery red. It seems as if the sky, angered, was challenging me who forcefully dispersed the clouds. Strike me if you can. I squeezed out Gangqi and levitated it above my hand again. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of sword gangs gathered above my hand, forming a sword gang sphere. With a burst of light, another star appeared above my hand. Fortunately, the sky did not strike me with heavenly lightning. It just rumbled, as if deciding to observe for a while, dispersing the clouds. Could I block the lightning now? I smiled wryly at the thought, but it seemed impossible to stop lightning with a gang sphere. How could I block a force that strikes at the speed of light? The power contained in the gang sphere is sufficient, but the speed is lacking to block it. Well, anyway, I'll think about that later. I gazed at the gang sphere I had formed in front of me. In the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts, many parts that I didn't understand before now made sense. The trials and errors of Kim Hung. Thanks to him pioneering the realm ahead, I could avoid groping in the dark with trial and error. For example, the gang sphere is not just a bomb to be thrown and explode. I sat cross-legged on the altar, closing my eyes and floating the gang sphere. Although the gang sphere seems powerful, it is just a brute mass of energy. That meant, with a deep breath, I could inhale it into my body. Of course, it was just reabsorbing my internal energy, so there would be no increase in cultivation. However, the pressure and suction that formed in the dantian. Now I understand why that suction occurred. It was a sign that I was approaching the ultimate pinnacle beyond the 5 energies converging to the origin. The gang sphere entered my body, settling in the dantian. I infused intent into it, so much so that I felt like I was condensing myself into a small bead. The dantian is the field of the mind, right? I condensed myself into the field of the mind, so it would be strange if there were no changes. The gang sphere in the dantian settled naturally at the center of pressure and suction. It took root and I felt the pressure and suction increase many times over. Until now, my dantian was a mix of cultivated spiritual power and martial arts internal energy. But as the gang sphere exerted suction, the mixed internal energy was all drawn into the gang sphere. Simultaneously, the internal energy flowing through my meridians, along with spiritual power, separated and was drawn into the center of the gang sphere in the dantian. Ah, I felt it. The internal energy could enter the gang sphere as much as my consciousness allowed. It felt like the limit of internal energy in my dantian has expanded enormously. In the gang sphere in the dantian, the more I infused energy, the more it compressed endlessly. No, the gang sphere in the dantian can no longer be called just a gang sphere. It has become something different, mingled with the nature of the dantian. Yes, instead of a gang sphere, it would be better to call it an inner core. As the inner core formed, I realized something. Ah, that's it. Before, I felt apprehensive about the internal energy of the dragon vein chi method flowing through the spiritual meridians. I didn't know why I felt that way then. But now, I understand. Humming. As I practiced the 5 surpassing paths to cultivation, I felt the spiritual energy entering much faster than before. The manipulation of spiritual power became much easier. It was like living in a smoggy city and then coming to the countryside with clean air and breathing freely. So far, the cultivation method was hindered because the internal energy in the meridians was mixed with spiritual power. In a previous life, there was a time when I thought Kim Young-hoon had a slightly better aptitude for cultivation than me. He reached the 2nd star of chi refining faster than me, without a good teacher or much time. But thinking about it now, it wasn't that he had slightly better aptitude. He just didn't have a mixed energy like me but stored his internal energy well in the inner core, preventing the internal energy from mixing turbulently. Inhaling the heaven and earth spiritual energy, I practiced my cultivation. It was much faster than before. At the same time, I utilized the hidden consciousness technique. A technique that compresses consciousness to speed up cultivation. With the efficiency of the hidden consciousness technique, it felt vastly superior compared to before. At this rate, isn't this efficiency comparable to that of a true spiritual root instead of a mixed spiritual root? I was astonished by the tremendous efficiency of my cultivation. Of course, whether it is a true spiritual root or a mixed spiritual root, both are still considered inferior spiritual roots. But for me, who has a mixed spiritual root, such an increase in cultivation efficiency was incredibly significant. After checking the speed of my cultivation, I started to explore other effects of the inner core. Whoosh! Internal energy burst forth from the inner core. Simultaneously, the inner core became a central axis, forming a central origin. Unlike before, when I layered gang chi in the void to form a gang sphere, it was now possible to create a gang sphere directly within the inner core. The gang sphere emitted light from my palm, scattering its radiance. The technique that Kim Young-hoon had shown before. If it weren't for the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts he left, I too would have struggled to transform the gang sphere into the inner core. I'm fortunate I could create the inner core immediately after resolving the trial and error. I clenched my fist again, absorbing the gang sphere. Then I stood up and flexed my feet. Boom! In an instant, I closed a distance of 5 meters. Thanks to the inner core providing a central origin, my internal energy efficiency has overwhelmingly improved. The strengthening of my body through internal energy reached extreme levels. My reaction speed, strength, and stamina have become incomparably stronger. Hop! I drew internal energy from my inner core and threw a punch. Crash! The internal energy, which previously could only weakly cover my sword, now displayed tremendous power when released from the inner core, shattering a boulder 1 meter in diameter. There is no waste in my internal energy use. My control over internal energy is now perfectly refined. Using the same techniques would now yield much stronger effects. I practiced various techniques several times while familiarizing myself with the inner core. Simultaneously, I pondered the difference between the golden core formed by core formation cultivators and the inner core I created. Does the golden core formed by core formation cultivators have the same effect as my inner core? After some thought, I concluded that they were entirely different, despite any superficial similarities. After all, the martial arts of the martial world are just degenerated versions of cultivation methods. Even if they look similar, they are never the same. When a core formation cultivator forms a golden core, their power can shatter mountains and split seas. While a chi-building cultivator like Mokli Wangshan could destroy one or two pavilions with a whirlwind, a core formation cultivator with the same spell could lift and obliterate the entire palace with a whirlwind. Perhaps a core formation cultivator could level an entire imperial city in the time it takes to count from 1 to 10 with their eyes closed. In comparison, my inner core only improved the efficiency of martial arts and sped up the use of Gang Sphere. After experiencing the abilities of the inner core several more times, I checked the effects of completing the 7 stars ritual of chi refining. Looking at the sky, I felt as if I could understand what celestial energy is. Accepting the heaven and earth spiritual essence, it seems I could interpret the will of the heavens. Of course, as a chi refining cultivator, I couldn't understand much, but looking at the sky, I clearly knew how much life I have left. I also had an intuition to guess the weather for the next day by looking at the sky. My lifespan is always the same, so it's useless for me, and the weather can be calculated using the methods taught by my master. As my realm advances, my ability to read celestial energy will grow stronger. I felt that in the future, I will be able to vaguely glimpse fortunes and destinies. I felt confident that I could quickly master both the 6 harmonies 8th star and the 5 elements 9th star of chi refining. This confidence stemmed from my past life, when after getting stuck at the 7 stars ritual, I continuously previewed the realms beyond, almost fully grasping their meanings. Sigh. Settling down, I began practicing the 8th star of the Earth surpassing path method. The influx of heaven and earth spiritual energy was incomparably faster than before. The internal energy that had been hindering my spiritual power usage were all absorbed into my inner core. With the hidden consciousness technique also in effect, my cultivation speed accelerated to the level of a true spiritual root cultivator. A year passed. With the addition of the dense spiritual energy from Ascension Path, it took me just over a year, with some trial and error, to advance to the 9th star of chi refining. The 6 harmonies involved stimulating the consciousness in the 4 cardinal and 2 diagonal directions with spiritual energy, increasing the size of the consciousness and filling the entire spiritual meridians with spiritual power. With a complete understanding of this realm and consistent practice, I was able to reach it quickly. Now at the 9th star, the 5 elements. From this stage, the properties of the basic cultivation methods began to be significantly emphasized. Previously, the basic spells were like controlling ordinary elements, but from the 9th star, one could exert proper mystical abilities. Hop, boom. As I formed the hand seals and activated the mystical abilities recorded in the earth surpassing path, a massive wall of earth rose before me. The 2-meter-high earthen wall, formed with spiritual power, was not only solid but also capable of shooting earthen projectiles, allowing both offense and defense. I could also ride on the collapsed wall as if sliding on the ground, build earthen houses, and freely use earth-moving techniques. The range of mystical abilities and techniques related to the earth element has significantly increased compared to before. From the stage of the 5 elements, the process of forming true words and hand seals for spells and mystical abilities matching the properties of the cultivation method is greatly simplified. Snap. Quickly forming basic hand seals, I completed an earth element spell that previously required a full set of true words and hand seals. Around this time, I decided to leave Ascension Path. For the 6 harmonies, dense spiritual energy might be necessary, but from the 5 elements onwards, it's not needed. I just needed enough spiritual energy of my own element. For that, it was better to enhance my earth attribute spiritual power on the ground below rather than on Ascension Path. I looked at the residence where I had stayed for over 41 years. Next to it was an altar, 60 meters in size, bearing my traces. After a brief look, I turned and headed towards the outskirts of Ascension Path. Below, the Ascension Path. After packing basic food and water, I jumped down. Whoosh! The wind lashed at me. The ground approached rapidly. Suddenly, flash! I felt like I was passing through something and, feeling strange, I looked up to see that Ascension Path had vanished without a trace. Was it surrounded by some kind of barrier? After all, the heaven-treading desert was frequently traversed even by mortals. If such an enormous floating island existed, it would surely be well known. Unable to hide my amazement, I drew a gang sphere from my palm and shot it into the sky. Flash! Boom! The gang sphere was suddenly blocked by the void and crumbled away. It seems easy to leave from the inside, but hard to enter from the outside. Anyway, I had finished what I needed to do on Ascension Path, so it didn't matter. The desert ground drew nearer. Reading the wind's course, I kick the void. Boom, boom. Thanks to the inner core, even though I used less internal energy, void stepping showed much greater efficacy. As I decelerated rapidly and the sandy floor neared, I landed on the ground almost as if stepping down stairs. Thud, swoosh, sand scattered all around. I formed a hand seal using earth attribute spiritual power to shake off the sand flying towards me. Let's see, where should I go first? Perhaps I should head north, where the suspicious stone structure seemed to have flown off. Or maybe west, towards the direction of Biokra. Chapter 55. Heavenly Thunder 2. The decision didn't take long. I should head north. I miss human interaction, but the stone structure in the north intrigued me more. I decided to wait until nightfall. When night fell and the stars rose, I read the constellations to ascertain my current location and roughly determined the position of Biokra. Then, forming a hand seal, I created a dirt platform from the sand and rode it across the desert. Whoosh. As I headed north, I constantly employed the earth listening technique towards the underground, thinking that if there was a stone structure, it might be buried under the sands of the desert. The stone is unique, unfamiliar, very solid and sturdy. Even if it was a building from thousands of years ago, it wouldn't have eroded by now. It should be possible to find it. Whoosh. Days passed. A sandstorm blew in. I bent the earth attribute spiritual power around me to deflect the sands from the platform. Days passed since heading north. I'm constantly using the earth listening technique to scan underground, but nothing's been found. It seems it was either further north or buried too deep for my earth listening technique to detect. It has to be one or the other. Honestly, searching the entire heaven-treading desert seems a bit foolish. How long would it take to comb through this desert? Perhaps it was wiser to give up and head to Biokra to see familiar faces. I'll head north for one more day, and if there's nothing, I'll change course to Biokra. Whoosh. As I faced the sandstorm, I sighed deeply. Everywhere I looked, there was only sand. Then, I saw something. Quote. Exclamation mark quote. Up ahead, there was something protruding above the sandy surface. It was a small stone, its color identical to that of the stone structure. That's it. I quickly maneuvered the platform towards the stone. This is mostly buried. This small part seemed to have emerged due to the sand being swept away by the sandstorm. Using the earth listening technique, I determined the extent of the buried section. It definitely seems to be the same material as the stone structure but just a part of it. It was like a plaque. I formed a hand seal to excavate the stone from the sand. The rectangular stone plaque had ancient script inscribed on it. However, the back part was either broken or damaged, not visible. Looking at the damaged part of the plaque, I realized that its shape matched the fragment I had seen next to the stone structure on Ascension Path. There must be a thunder character following this. What could this ancient script mean? I interpreted the script on the stone plaque, slowly deciphering its meaning. This is metal. No, does it mean shining? Golden color. I should interpret it as gold, it seems. Recalling my studies as a chief advisor of the Woolen Alliance, I carefully deciphered the script. Then I felt an odd sense of unease. This is spirit, a divine being. I should interpret it as divine, and the last character before the damage is. I furrowed my brow while interpreting the last of the three characters inscribed on the plaque. Quote. Single quote. Heaven. Following this, there's a fragment on the Ascension Path stone structure that fits perfectly. With the thunder character. Golden Divine Heaven Thunder. My eyes widened. Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect. Did the stone structure have a connection with the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect? Thinking about it, the monument under the thunderclouds absorbing lightning was quite fitting for the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect. But what was strange was the treatment of the stone structure. It appears to be a building or shrine related to the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect. Why was a building of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect, whose Grand Master had gone to the Ascension Gate, torn apart and discarded like this? While frequenting the Cheonmin clan's library, I had read about the locations of famous cultivation sects. Heaven Creation Sect in the northern grasslands of Biokra. Blackbone Valley on one of the islands in the southern sea of Yangguo. Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect in the western mountains of Shengji. Considering Yangguo, east was Biokra and beyond that, the heaven-treading desert. West of Yangguo was Shengzi. Why was a plaque from a sect located in the western mountains of Shengxi lying in the middle of the heaven-treading desert, in the completely opposite direction? Was this area once the territory of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect? However, every historical text I read stated that the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect had been active in the western region of the Shaanxi for nearly 3,000 years. If that's the case, then the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect being located here would be an event from at least 3,000 years ago. Quote. Quote. Cultivators live very long, resulting in history being immensely vast, far surpassing common sense. It's impossible to know what happened during that lengthy period. I might have to look into it later. Or maybe ask Jin Baek Ho in my next life. Considering his temperament, if I dared to ask such a question, he'd likely strike me down with lightning for speaking so boldly as a mere chi refining cultivator. Thinking about it soured my mood. Why are cultivators so brutally violent? I was lost in these thoughts when the sandstorm intensified. I saw something beyond the sandstorm. Focusing my vision, I glimpsed what seemed to be a castle shrouded in the storm. A dark castle stood beyond the sandstorm. Is someone there? Just as curiosity began to stir, a sudden realization hit me. I smell blood. I felt a sinister and ominous energy emanating from the castle. With the experience and intuition accumulated over several lifetimes, and a hint of inspiration granted by the heavens, I was warned. It is extremely dangerous. I decided to keep my distance. I set down the stone plaque of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect and turned my disc around, quickly heading south along the way I had come. After a while, I managed to escape the sandstorm. Whoosh! Phew, that was intense. The sandstorm was one thing, but the malevolence and the blood scent felt from that castle seen through the storm were enough to send chills down my spine. Heaven-treading desert. I thought it was safe, being nothing but sand. Perhaps it's more dangerous than I thought. Come to think of it, around this time, there were reports of a massacre near the heaven-treading desert. Because of that incident, the neighboring clans of Cheongman, Bayak, Gongmyo, including the Mokli and Jin of Yangguo, the clans in Shaanxi, and the core formation cultivators in the states further east of the heaven-treading desert were all on high alert. Was that castle related to what I just saw? I surmised that the castle was likely connected to the reported massacre near the heaven-treading desert. Had I foolishly continued towards that castle out of curiosity, I might have been on my way to the next life by now. Shivering, I continued south along the path I had come. Night fell again. It was time to check my location using the constellations. Wait, something was off. The desert landscape had changed due to the sandstorm, so I hadn't thought much of it. Even if the positions of the surrounding sand dunes had shifted greatly, it was to be expected. But after observing the constellations, I felt something amiss. I fled south upon seeing the castle, but why? Had I ended up near Biokra in the far west? Shudder. A cultivator's formation array. That place must have been inhabited by a high-level cultivator, with an immensely vast formation spread around. I was able to exit with my direction skewed just by approaching the outskirts of the formation. But if I had ventured even slightly closer, I need to get out of the heaven-treading desert as soon as possible. I steered the disc westward, heading towards Biokra. 20 nights passed. Quote. The heaven-treading desert really is vast. I muttered, pulling out a seed from my pocket to eat. I was running low on food and water I brought from Ascension Path. Only monsters who have reached Chi building can survive without food for long. Being just a mere Chi refining cultivator, I needed food to live. Though having formed an inner core, I could last much longer than ordinary people, but constantly using spiritual power and moving like this was a different story. I'm almost there. Just a day or two more to the eastern outskirts of Biokra. A territory of the Gongmyo clan resided there. Among the desert tribes under Gongmyo's domain, I should be able to find food and water. The next day, whoosh, dry, so dry, my throat is parched. I had run out of water. The last of my food was a tree fruit I ate yesterday. Hunger is bearable, but the thirst is unbearable. It felt as if my throat is burning. Just a sip of water, that's all I wish for. Even though I had formed an inner core and ascended to Chi refining, I was not yet beyond human needs, so I gritted my teeth against the intense thirst. I never thought I'd miss those detestable Mokli clans so much. More precisely, I yearned for their water-based spells. The earth-surpassing path is convenient, but in this extreme situation, it is far from a method to procure water. Damn, I'm dying of thirst. Am I going to die from a lack of water in this life? I've died several times, but it's not an experience I'm keen to repeat. That's when I saw them. Quote. Quote. Far away, someone in white robes appeared. A person. Perhaps they have water. I hurriedly formed a hand seal to speed up the platform. The person in white was a woman with black hair. Her pure white robe contrasted with her jet black hair. She wore a multicolored glass bracelet on her wrist and a jade ornament on her waist. Her appearance was more serene than beautiful, with an air of stubbornness about her. She had a domain of consciousness around her brow. A cultivator. Excuse me, I stuttered, speaking to someone else for the first time in ages. Perhaps. You seem thirsty. Please, drink. Thank you. I took the water pouch she offered and drank desperately. Water. Water. Lukewarm, but it was the most heavenly drink I'd ever tasted. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Ah, I owe you my life. Thank you, miss. No need. There's a city not far from here. You're traveling from the east, right? You're dressed oddly. Ahem. I have my reasons. What's the name of this nearby city? It's called Cheon-sak City. Just a little southeast, and you'll find it. It seems you're a fellow Taoist. If you use the same technique you used to get here, you'll arrive in just a moment. Ah, thank you so much. May I know your name, miss, so I can repay you later? She shook her head at my words. It's only natural to help travelers in the desert. I'm fine, take care. I have to find materials for my magical artifacts around here. She formed a hand seal and surfed away on the sand like a wave. About Chi refining 13th star, such a kind lady. I bowed in the direction she had gone, paying my respects, then steered the platform in the direction she had indicated. Just as she said, in a short while, I arrived at Cheon-sak City, located at the eastern end of Biokra. Cheon-sak City, named after Gongmyo Cheon-sak, the Chi-building cultivator from Gongmyo clan. As I heard from the Cheonmin clan, it was a famous place where all kinds of magical artifacts were traded. Also, the glassware produced in the city was considered artistic, sought after by many places. Of course, I had no interest in such things. I beat up some bandits around Cheon-sak City, turned them in for a bounty, and used the reward to buy basic clothes, water, and food. Then I headed towards the western part of Biokra, towards Cheonmin clan's territory. My lifespan is now down to about 9 years. Though I've been delayed by 40 years, focusing only on rituals, I intend to check on the connections from my past life. First, I decided to visit my master. Translator notes, Heavenly Golden Thunder Sect will be officially called Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder Sect.